Awesome. Okay, so hi everyone. I am here with this incredible soul who I just love and adore, and I've had the privilege to talk to a few times. I'm obsessed with Jen, and she is an amazing author. I've read her books, and I have just followed her journey with love and compassion, and I've always been impressed. And as long as we have been knowing each other, we've been in this like fast track of growth and inner work and empowerment and all this sort of stuff. And so now we're catching up because Jen has an exciting new book to share with everybody.
Yay! Oh, Joe, I love coming and talking to you. You are just like 100%. You get it. I don't really ever have to explain myself. I don't have to go into crazy detail and think I'm being judged. You just totally get it every time.
Yeah, we were just sort of talking prior, just a little chat, not a few hours, but just a little chat. And I was recalling how I felt like I was some sort of guide or assistant to you when you were in Atlantis. And it felt very interesting to me when we were sort of doing some feeling into like, how are we so familiar? How do we know each other, given I know my sort of history-ish? It was just amazing. And we do have this beautiful, deep connection. So I am so excited to hear about your new project and how it's empowered you, because I'm all for it.
Oh, Joe, thank you so much. You know, I know you and I have done this kind of work before. This is not the first lifetime, because the minute I talked to you for the first time and met you and we started talking about this, I felt like we had just picked up somewhere that we had left off quite a while ago. And it's just a natural kind of recognition between the two of us and our work and our soul's work. It's it's always interesting. I don't know. We'd have to probably do like a session and maybe find out a little bit more about where you and I had been during that time with Atlantis or Lemuria and Amun or any of that, but I'd be interested to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know in the session that I was on board a ship when they were killing the children on the island in Atlantis. And so that was kind of like my reference point of like, we'd just been watching and been over Atlantis for so long, watching and observing. And it was really interesting because I think you're telling me of a lifetime where you were with Jesus, and I'm trying to recall if it was a similar situation where we were watching you, we're always watching
you. Yeah. Oh, I remember that one. That was a session I did a long time ago, and it was just a brief one. And I recalled being an older sibling to Jesus in that one, which kind of, I found it humorous because in this lifetime, I feel like I've been the eternal eldest child of like everyone I've ever had to take care of or meet. So I could see how strongly that would come through in this lifetime. But that's got to be we have to do more sessions down the road to find out more about that. I think there's probably a bigger connection there.
Yeah, my relationship with Jesus this lifetime has been from like not appreciating the person or the message or anything, being quite sort of like repelled from it, to now like I came into a session yesterday and I just cried for the client because he just loved her so much and just gave her this blessing, and you know his energy is so remarkable, and you know I just love these sessions because they're just such gifts. So anyway, sorry.
No, I understand. I remember in that specific session with that seeing him as a child and having this energy about him. It was such like a mischievous child, but with such love behind it that it was very overwhelming just to like watch him sit and play and you know try to interact with people as a small being, you know, still so fresh in that knowledge from, you know, your past and that place you come from when you're born. So I get it.
You know, it just prompts me to say, I know people have said to me regularly, I just wish the veil could be removed. I just wish I could remember all my other lifetimes. And this, you're just giving me some sneak information about the session and the book you've got, and you're talking about how you did remember a lifetime. And how did that work out for you?
Wow. So I'd have to say that with the new book, that I'm working on, that's actually going to be coming out just in a couple of days. I focus completely on a completely different life that was also mentioned in some of the other companion books for my book. It was the lifetime of Christy. That was the life that I inhabited before I was Jen. And so early on in my first QHHT sessions, I began to understand my life about Christy, even before I understood Atlantis and Amun. She was the first person to come through to me. And I saw her on a bridge, and I saw myself above the bridge. And it always struck me as I needed to know more about her. And even though I went and I discovered my past lifetime as Kala first, and Atlantis and Amun, and then I wrote the book, Child of the Universe, all about that, I've really have been haunted by Christy since then. I needed, and when I say haunted, like, you have moments that you need to just say something, you need to get something out. And sometimes it's beyond this lifetime. Sometimes you need to say something from somewhere else. She needed to say something. And the more I learned about her story by doing more sessions, and then I learned how to do automatic writing as well. So that made it very easy for me to write and to just create this story of what I understood from my sessions about Christy. So Christy was alive in the 1970s in New York City. And during her short lifetime, she understood her past roles in Amun, Atlantis, that she also had the past lifetime as Kala, because, we're on this continuum, we're one and the same. Does not go well for Christy, and I write all about it in the book. Like, what happens when you have these cosmic understandings and the world is just not ready to understand or hear you, when you are pariahed, when you are made into this crazy person for saying what you've come to understand. And Christy's story is a it's a it's a heavy one. I'm not gonna lie. Beware, readers. It's a heavy story to digest, but I feel that I've walked away from writing it freer now that I've put it out there. And that was the goal.
Yeah. So speak your truth. And that there is no such thing as time as such. And so when you are writing it, you're healing her. And you also are feeling the upliftment of other people deeply recognizing the same story of not being understood. And I think like mental health and spirituality can be often confused, and then labels get thrown onto it. And I love how much you've gone deep with this one emotionally, and how you've healed yourself through this journey. And I feel like you've honored Chrissy for her struggles. And as much as we can get all the support around us, it's not until we want to heal ourselves and accept ourselves and honor ourselves in our journey, that is when the true healing can really begin.
I completely relate to everything you just said there, because that is exactly what happened to me with the writing of this. I became aware of so much with my first book, but with my second book, I really had to go deep within. I had to go inside myself, understand myself. I couldn't find a group. I couldn't really do a lot of sessions. I needed to learn how to empower myself to really understand my past lives and to understand why we have these and what all of this is and how it interacts with our current lives. And I no longer wanted to really pull that information from around me. I wanted to find it within me. And I did. I really did. And I feel so good about my life now that I've just gotten out what I needed to say. And I know it's put me on the right path for what I need to continue to do with my life.
Yeah. The utter healing. And I was speaking to you about, we were talking about doing this conversation, and you just said, I just feel so healed now and just so liberated and free from so much. And I sort of said that sometimes we have to relive the emotional journey and be allowed to feel the feelings. And for some reason, it was like you were kind of like, I've overgrown, like I've outgrown, feeling like a victim. And I was like, but I don't know if you're allowed to even feel like a victim in Atlantis. Like sometimes we're not allowed to fully, safely express how we're feeling. And I feel like this lifetime, I mean, even with Christy, because if she's not been understood and respected what she was sharing, which was her truth of her soul, she's a victim to that, and she's a victim to the system. And I feel like there was a lot of purging out for you to honor the victim within you without being in that victim mentality.
Yes, you definitely have tapped into something there. 100%. I wanted to cover that in this book, importantly, because I feel that, there are so many of us who find our identity through the victim mentality that in the first book, I didn't want to identify with it. I wanted to show strength. I wanted to show that, it is something to go beyond. But in this book, I go into it. I really bring it down into what that is. Why do we have this judgment towards the victim mentality when terrible things do happen to people? Things go awry. Where is our compassion in all of that and our understanding? And it gets easily washed away when we try to pull up this whole front that we are super strong, that we can do anything, that we're all these mega women who control all the world. Like we should be allowed to feel that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's honoring every stage of our emotions. You've had quite a few lifetimes here, so I would imagine you were like, I'll have everything, thanks. And the smorgasbord of all the range of emotions. And you definitely, I remember doing a channeling for you, and your guides came in and they were like literally screaming, she's forgotten how strong she is. She's forgotten it. And they were so, like, it was so intensive. And I remember it was before I had read your book, and they were reminding you. When I was reading your book afterwards, I was like, oh shit, she's going to think I've read a book already, and I'm like quoting stuff from, but it wasn't at all. I was completely had no reference point of it because I'm cheap and I didn't buy the book. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I understand completely what you're coming from with that. And they needed to tell me, you need to find your power again because you have it. You're not using it, and that coupon's going to expire if you don't bring it to the store at some point or another. And I was blocking it out. I really was, because I didn't feel empowered when I first published that book. I did not. I felt ashamed of what I had first published when I realized I had published it. I looked at it and I said, shit, everyone's going to think I'm crazy. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse or not, but you could block it out if you need to. And I realized in my perfect 3D world where I had, the life and the kids and part in my community, everyone's just going to think I'm nuts now. And I really had to break that away to find my power again.
Yeah, well, I think you did have your empowerment again to realize that you're unbreakable, and the information of how much harder other lifetimes have been kind of puts a more at ease for you this lifetime, because we've always got comparisons, not that we're supposed to compare other lifetimes and stuff, but your soul's unbreakable, and you knew that all the strength that you have had isn't like a fluke that lifetime where I was like, oh, whoops, where did that come from? It's all the other lifetimes you've ever lived. And so, I think this is where the challenging parts of living in society now is really strong, super fantastic souls are getting blown away and discredited and shut down and disempowered through systems such as Christie.
Completely. And I think that kind of stuff still needs to be highlighted, even though what I describe happens in the 70s, in a time where you think, oh, well, they locked everybody away and we didn't have a better understanding of mental health. I don't really think the world's that different at this point. I don't feel 50 years later that we really recognize, especially in our Eastern culture, our Western culture, like, most people still scoff at the idea of past lives when you try to approach the topic of it, but they will always tell you, oh, I really like that kind of food, so I must have been that in a past life. It's not to be taken seriously spiritually in so many aspects, but when it comes to commonplace anecdotes, it's perfectly acceptable. So breaking through that, I think, is a really big part of what we're facing here.
Totally. Yeah, it's a very common statement when something sort of goes awry, like, oh, next lifetime I'm going to become a cat and just be lady of leisure kind of thing. Thinking that they can choose all this stuff. But I guess this is, people don't watch what they speak about. And, when they're really challenged with it, this is why I think a lot of exit points right now are challenging people to question what happens after death. what do I believe is after, like, is there such thing as life after death? And you just Google it once and you get a billion, trillion hits to explore. And it's sort of, there is more of a possibility of an open-mindedness. And of course, you just do one session and have another lifetime experience. Undeniable.
Completely. It's amazing you bring that up because, well, not amazing. I know that they're guiding you in the perfect way to ask these questions, but I do talk about that a lot at the end of my new book coming out, and this, about what happens after you die. So I write all about my recollections of what did happen to me, or what happened to my soul after I died as Christy. Because Christy does, and this was a reason I almost didn't want to write the book, Christy kills herself at the end of this book. And it's not a spoiler at all. This is something that people who've read any of the other works that are related to my book, they know about Christy and what happened. She had a very short life. But what happens in that intermediary time after your life ends and you become the next person? Where do you go? What is that collection? I talk all about it. So anyone who's interested in like kind of seeing just my perspective of what I've realized through my sessions and my higher self, where I think we go, I definitely give you a good give you a run for your money. Go check it out.
So take all my money.
Like, agree, disagree, I don't know. I think what I've understood is probably the most comfortable thing for me to move forward with and understand in my life, is to see it as, a resting place that we go to, and we understand what we've done. We make our checklist before we come here. We see what we've accomplished. We review it in an unbiased way. And then we just wait for the next opportunity to come along that allows us to further what we need to continue. That's the little version.
Perfect. I love it. How empowering for you to recall that we choose these lives. I know sometimes we feel victim to our choices, but when you remember that experience of, okay, no, I'm going to commit. I have a purpose. There's lessons I want to experience. There's maybe karma that I've got to work out and support other souls to have their journey for their growth and their lessons. It's incredibly empowering. My question to you would be next, when you did know about life after death, there's a struggle, isn't there, when 3D living now feels quite challenging in moments. When we start believing and truly trusting that there is life after death, sometimes we have those moments where it's like, well, maybe I could just, pause this lifetime and rethink about it again. It's very challenging when we are awakening in spirituality to have to be settled and okay with, I'm here now, let's make the most out of it. Let's empower ourselves, not sort of shortcut our soul's experiences.
I completely agree with you. It's definitely it's an empowering process to go through. And God, it's I think it's one that we've done quite often, and we technically, it's important that we forget it, I think, because it's such it's a magnanimity to it. It's huge, you don't just take on these physical forms out of nowhere and it's just poof, it's all done. I think there's a lot of planning that goes into our lives before what we choose and what the options we allow ourselves. Like, I don't feel that anything's ever concrete or set in stone. I think the future is always ours to manipulate with whatever it is that we have inside of us. But, I can go on all day about this, but.
I know, it's one of my favorite topics too.
Right? Just thoughts in general, musings really though, but I actually, in this book, I talk a bit more about, it's called The Gift of the Stars, and it's more involved with alien abductions than my first book was. And I know that's something for a lot of people here, because there's still a lot of discomfort in just the mainstream culture about talking about, I feel that one of my past lives I may have been an alien, or I feel that there may have been alien abductions that have happened, or even in this current lifetime, it's still something people shy away from. And I write a lot about it because in this book, Christy was an abductee from a very early age, and she didn't understand what was happening to her until very late in her life, she understands the power of being an abductee, of what that actually means, that you're connected to something greater, that there is this kind of hybridization that has happened for many generations on our planet. I talk all about that in Child of the Universe with the creation of these children, but I go a lot further into it in the second one, and just how, detrimental it can be. Being this gift isn't always this wonderful, precious thing for a soul to experience. It could be very traumatic in many ways. And, I think
this is why they sort of are supposed to take away the memories. And so there is sometimes some people have a vague memory and they're crying and they get very upset about it, quite traumatized, feeling very vulnerable and, adapted again and scared for it. And then we do sessions about it and we talk to the subconscious and say, what the heck happened? We like napping? Like, what happened to my client, Mr. Subconscious? And they will say they were crying because they didn't come back. They're crying because they lost their soul families. They're crying because they knew how hard it was. They knew how long it's going to be, and how dense it is here. And just asking our subconscious, what the heck, is like the best perspective sometimes. But other times when we sort of miss the significances and the purposes of it, it's horrible. It's so like emotionally traumatizing. I agree with you.
100%. No, there's so much beyond just the understanding of like, oh, that's who I was in my past life. No, there is an existence there that is just as complicated as the one you have right now. And to deeper understand it and to understand what you've already gone through, I highly recommend it. I know you shouldn't spend too much time in the past. It's not always the best thing for the soul, but going back and truly understanding it, I feel like is a step forward for freedom for so many people.
But I agree that the past does have some great keys and perspectives to understand us now. And while this lifetime now is the most important for us to really focus on because we're in it, we can't really escape. We can't really go too much forward and focus too much on the future because we're needing to be in our present moment and in the families and the experiences that we need. This is why we have days, like literally. But going back and finding these sticking points or remembering who we are and knowing ourselves, that is a huge step forward in self-empowerment.
100%. You have to get to these evolutionary jumping points if you want to see what's next. And I think that is a major one that we have to climb up onto and look at ourselves from a higher perspective and really see it for ourselves.
Totally. It just reminds me of this client recently. She hears sessions, she knows that there is other beings that aren't humanoids and all this sort of stuff. And in her session, I was asking her to explore her body, and she was like, and she was like, oh, not human. And I was like, she's like, it's so cute. Like it was kind of like, and it was like just looking at the hands, and it was like 3 long fingers, and it was like, oh, it was a cute moment where it was kind of like, you want to feel comfortable in what you're experiencing and stuff, and then all of a sudden when you're trying to be aware of stuff and you realize that you assume you're human, right? Because you're sensing this thing and you're in this moment, and then you're checking.
Right? This isn't what I remembered being here last. Hold on. No, I had that. I definitely relate to that when I first started doing my sessions, and I realized, like with the commander, that past life, like I know I'm not human. Like I feel way beyond being human right now, even though, you do tend to have that humanoid form in it. But it's such an interesting thing when you go into the sessions and you realize that you can take on so many different forms. It doesn't matter. We're just energy.
Were you a lady in that lifetime?
I think so. I believe so, but I can never be 100% sure with anything, because sometimes I find that the messages I get in my sessions are less a direct, like this is exactly what it is, but more a clue for me to understand and to further go into it and understand it more. less of a, well, here's your answer. You know, it's always like that teacher in school who'll be like, yes, I could give you the answer, but I'm going to make you read the whole book instead, and then you're going to figure it out and tell me about it in your essay. You know, that kind of.
Yeah, I get it, because you know, like for them, they're just advanced feelings and they don't really get attached to labels. And you know, people are sort of like, what's your name, subconscious, and they're kind of like, oh, I'm just going to trigger in. And it's like, you know, like it's almost like, can't get my name, we can't be Facebook friends because I'm not in your demand. Like, you know, like you can put energy, but my name is not pronounceable in English, and but you love the names and the labels, and you know, anyway. But I was thinking about the journey that you've had in your like full-on extensive life experiences, and it makes sense to me that one of them would be an exit point. I mean, we all design our exit points, but I'm trying to recall because I know lots of people are like, oh gosh, you know, when you commit suicide, there's karma to it and all this sort of stuff, and you feel like you're empowering yourself to get the information and the truth out from the metaphysical perspectives. In your books, you're doing such a fantastic job because you're tackling the really bold statements that are still almost taboo, which is so silly and but not taboo for the people listening, because I know that they're all for this.
Right? Like when you look past the whole love and light concept that you see everyone saying now, where's the reality there for us? Where is the understanding? Like, what is that for any of us? Does it end there when you're just feeling that camaraderie and that togetherness and everyone's love and light? Or is it so much deeper inside of you that you need to really dig, and you need to go further, and you need to go all the way to the very beginning of your life and understand it? It's so much bigger than I feel like what we're kind of painting it out to be. We're underestimating it in so many ways, and we're kind of materializing that awakening, and too, not us specifically, but just as in a generalized form, I see it happening. So it's I think it's something that when I wrote about an exit point for Christy, when I wrote about her exit point, I almost didn't write the book just because I didn't want to promote suicide. I did not want that for people to come across and say, well, she wrote about it. That's a great idea. Let's have some copycat moments, you know, or like, you know, people dwell on these kind of things, especially deep things they understand. But the way I ended up writing it, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when I send you your copy, because I don't feel like it leaves you with this feeling of suicide as this karmatic, terrible thing that you do to your body. It doesn't. What I remember from my sessions and understanding where Christy goes after she ends her life, it's not a place of judgment. It's not a place of retribution. It's not a balancing scale that she needs to now fill because she finished early. She knew her time was done, and she knew her mission needed to be completed. And this is what her journey was. And it's not to be copied. It's just something to be accepted and to be taken into consideration.
I love that. You know, that's a really mature approach to it. But I also know that when we are here to share big information, we are going to trigger the shit out of people to grow.
Oh, hell yeah.
And triggering is a beautiful opportunity for growth. We know that. But, you know, I'm not a fan of triggering because, you know, I know how reactive we can be when we're triggered. But if I stopped doing anything to trigger people, there'd be no growth.
Yes.
And I know people that have not wanted to share public sessions, for example, because they're terrified people will get their feelings hurt. And it's kind of like, and I know this is a lot for like when parents come into sessions and they want to like helicopter the shit out of their kids. You know, like they're wanting to like, where should my child live to not be impacted by the future events? And, you know, will they go to the new earth and all this sort of stuff? And the subconscious is kind of like, they need to have some really hard challenges. They need to be experiencing the old earth, and you can't do anything about it because they have to grow. They want these triggers. And, you know, it kind of humbles us when we realize we don't, you know, control or own our children, even though, you know, we pay for them.
In so many ways.
so many ways. Yeah,
it's true. They are on their own journey, and it's a hard thing to accept at first when you really have that deep connection and whatnot. But you know, they they show you in their own way what we need to do. And I think it's really important because I look at my children and I look at how they feel and what they think about and what they tell me about and how they act. And I think, God, please just let the future be like this. Let this kind of innocence and this true wonder continue throughout all of them. Let that be what we're creating. Please let that be what we're trying to create, because I want that for them. I want that more than anything. I want them to have something that they feel that they're proud of and they're happy to be a part of.
I remember doing a session with you where you shifted and you were looking at the old earth.
Yes.
And I could feel, because this was your biggest scare, was like every other parent, oh, it's going to happen to my kids. I can't see them exit before me. And for you, having that experience of seeing your children exit before you can be forever haunting and traumatizing a soul. You know, like you get that. And I remember being so worried for the answers. You know, but also knowing that you've already experienced trauma, and I can't for the life of me understand why you would need the same level of trauma, because I feel like you've healed from that version of trauma, even though we don't want to experience it again. I feel like those lessons were all unpacked and it was beautiful and you can all this sort of stuff. So as a practitioner, I was like, you know, like, but I remember you realizing that your children were with you after the shift, and I could just feel this deep soul so clear. Yes. And it was like, it's still emotional because I'm just remembering this huge relief that some of the trauma and all the trauma that you've experienced in other lifetimes isn't going to be repeated here.
No, I completely, well, that was one big thing I walked away from your session with that session, was that I felt the fear of the removal of my children just gone. It wasn't something I knew I needed to fear anymore. It was just something that had become part of like the zeitgeist, and it was becoming more and more pressing down on me that like, oh, you've done all this work and now for what? So you can watch your children like be taken away in that sense. And that wasn't what it was. It wasn't the awareness I needed to become aware of. It was very different. It was something I needed to grow and understand a bit more about, because, you know, I went through a lot in this lifetime already. I've spoken a little bit about this in other interviews, possibly, but maybe not. My first book was dedicated to my sister. And my sister, when she was 16 years old, my sister Amanda, she was walking outside of a Sweet 16 party and crossed a street to help some children cross the street, and was hit by a car, and she died. And she was a wonderful, beautiful soul. But, you know, I've always had that as a mother kind of in the background of my mind of how quickly and how terrible and how just completely unnecessary that kind of loss is in someone's life. And I didn't want to repeat it. And so I fought against those understandings of what that would be, what a shift would it take, what would happen to my children, because I wasn't living through that again. And my soul was saying, you're not doing it again, but I wasn't listening. I was just seeing it with blinders on. And your session really helped me take those blinders off. And in a way, it gives my children the freedom to be who they are, who they want to be. It allows them to find their place in this world, and it stops me from stopping them from their mission, because we all have different ones.
Facing our fears can be terrifying and can definitely limit us. And it's so scary and so vulnerable. But the more we do these sessions and we realize we're so supported, we're so protected, and that everything is significant. And you know, it's a huge leap of faith. But there's so much emotions coming through now, because I feel like your sister did you connect in with her through a session and be able to find out like your life purpose and contracts and what the heck was those lessons for those families?
Definitely, I did a while back. And I understood so much from her. I understood that she had many choices that she could have made, and that she had some different exit points that she could have chosen. And this was the one that she felt did the least harm, even though it was terrible. But she felt that there was an exit point later on in her life. And this is something she shared through a session that I had with a medium. and that she was going to have another point later on in her life where she had 2 small children, and she was going to find out she had bone cancer, and she was going to die a painful, painful death with her children watching, and they would be left alone with probably me to care for, which, you know, I'd take them in a heartbeat if I had the chance, but these hypothetical ghost children. But she said this was the easier way for us all to have this awakening in our lives, that she was not meant to stay for long, that this is what she was supposed to do, and she chose the merciful version. So I still don't understand all of it. I don't understand why this kind of stuff happens to people while we lose children, while we lose the ones we love. Like, I want to understand. I understand so many philosophies on it, but I think that's something we truly get, though, once we join them.
Yeah. And it's all abstract. It's other people's feelings, other people's families, all this sort of stuff. But when it's our own personal experiences, those range of emotions are extreme. And yeah, well, let me know if you want to connect in with her. And I have this feeling she's already in your life with some other vessel.
Definitely. I feel her energy in my children sometimes. I'll see a smile, and I know it's her smile, and they'll say something, and I'm like, I haven't heard someone say that in like 20 years. You know, I know that she pops in and out. Like, I feel that they all have their own souls, whoever they are, but, you know, people, that energy doesn't die. And I think it can come through us in so many different ways, just to say hi, just to remind us that, you know, it's not the end. You've still got lots of work to do, is what she's telling me. Get to work. Get those books done.
Yeah. Often would ask the subconscious, is there anything else you'd like me to know? And they're just like, you've got lots of work to do. You know, and it's like, oh.
I like that, though. I feel that it gives purpose. When they give me that kind of a message and they say you've got a lot of work to do, it fills me with like a joy now. I used to get overwhelmed by it, but now I look at it and I'm like, well, if this is what I'm doing and this is what you want me to do and I'm happy to do it, then I've beat the game.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You know?
I had the same feeling too, because when they started telling me this, I was like, oh no, in the work, am I this effed? And yeah, I was that, but I just didn't realize how much like onion peeling I needed to do. I still was reactive. I still was, you know, feeling other people's emotions, not realizing that they were mine, but I was holding them as if they were. Like, it's been such a journey. And I think the more you get to know all the different versions of yourself, it's so empowering. I think you've always been such a strong soul, and I love and adore you for that strength. And this feels like such an amazing, even like the full-on empowerment. I'm like lost for words because I'm feeling into everyone that's wanting to like send lots of love to you. So what's next for you? Tell me what's next.
Oh, all right. Shameless plug. I just started up my own publishing company. I call it Red Crystal Publishing, after the red crystals that I talk about in both my books. I have just decided my mission with the whole thing is to just create books that empower people from within. So people do not need to continuously keep looking outside for all this grouping, for all of this mechanism, and truly begin to get in and start doing that deep work inside of you that empowers you, that brings you to that new level of understanding.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So that's what's next.
Huge demand for that. Yeah, huge demand for that. Well, I'm trusting that you've got all the social media stuff coming there. I know you're on Facebook. Are you on like Instagram? Like, tell me what you're on.
Oh, okay. So here's all the cool kid links we got. So I'm definitely on Facebook, and on Facebook we've got some really good groups for Child of the Universe and A Hypnotist Journey to Atlantis. We've got really good messaging boards there, so you can take a look and see if there's other people on Facebook who want to converse with you about, you know, past lives in Atlantis, Lemuria, all that good stuff. Then I got Instagram, one for me and one for my publishing company, and I like to make lots of original little things here and there. So, you like, subscribe if you want to. If not, just check it out. My favorite one though, Joe, because I really like doing this, is Pinterest. I don't know if I know most moms I know are Pinterest crazy because it's something you can do while you're like breastfeeding or cooking that dinner. Like, you can still get a couple of pins in there. I make tons of pins for my books and I throw them all over Pinterest. Just little artwork that I think relates to the story that might help people understand it better, or just, just aesthetically pleasing, aesthetically everything for me. So that's a majority of where I function through social media online. And, I have my website too, JLF Sullivan. I have a blog on there. I like to do little, writings, musings. One thing I'm going to start soon as well, I found out that the island I live on here in Hawaii, Joe, filled with energy vortexes, and I had no idea. I read a book about it and it was really enlightening. So now I think what I'm going to do is start maybe a small documentary series I'm going to put on my blog or my website. And I'm just going to go to these energy vortex spots in Hawaii and just see what's going on, see what they are. Like, why are they so special? And just see how it feels when I go there.
Because I remember when you moved here and I asked you, how did it feel? And you felt, I could feel you were like amazingly lighter. Like, it was just this disconnect from one location of who you were and what you were, and then moving to this. And it was like, I had this moment of just crying because I could feel this release of this pain, and I could feel you saying to me, and then you said to me, I'm home. And like, home is the best freaking feeling ever. And it was like that energy that you were craving for, that you couldn't sort of seem to find anywhere else, literally stepping onto your new home with your beautiful family, so empowering. And it's just, this is where you've come to shine and to grow and to heal and to be, everything that you have worked so hard, so incredibly hard for so many lifetimes, be of service. And this is the time for it. Like, the highlight of everything is now.
I completely agree. It is. It's finding that power within the now that we're in at this moment. I don't ever want to paint the picture and let people think, oh, I published my book and everything magically fixed itself in my life and now my life is perfect and I live in Hawaii. Like, oh no, I still got the same shit and problems everybody else has got. We still got to figure out how we're going to afford to eat. And well, for the most part of everybody, I still have the things I have to deal with as a human being. But on a spiritual level, on a level of self-understanding, on a level of just totally feeling who Jen is and getting it and not feeling anything but true love and empowerment for myself, that is what I've gotten out of all of this, especially this move here. Being in a place that I feel good and I can vibrate good within is unbelievable. I didn't realize how toxic my old environment was until I left it. And to come to this place, it's life changing.
Like the saying, she's rich now, rich with all the good things that are in life. And we have these assumptions of, what materialism will bring to our souls and to our happiness. And it just sucks the crap out of it.
Mm-hmm. It does. But I think it's all just part of this journey that we're on. It's all part, we say journey. Journey is the key word, the hidden word, the synonym for the deep shit we have to dig through in order to figure out what and who we are. And that's really why we're here. We're not here to understand this. Oh, is this that, or is that this? We're here to understand ourselves. And we take away everything we know about ourselves and say, figure it out now. And God, did I really, the best figuring I've ever done was during the moments of stress and pressure and just all of the things that I try to relate in my books. Those are the moments of growth that we look for, or I've looked for anyway.
And you've mastered it so well. And when they're talking about what the frick is the purpose of Earth, it's about experiencing the emotions. And when you're in that heightened emotions of being triggered or stressed or pressurized, that's when you can start identifying what the frick is going wrong or within you. And usually this is at our boiling point of being those little volcanoes, and we just verbalize it out. And when we hear what's going on for us emotionally, then we can recognize, oh, that's what I'm feeling energetically, but it's actually purging it out. And we're usually, busy moms. So when someone asks us if there's a problem, what's wrong, we're fine. Jesus, if someone says to you, you're fine, run for the hills or just sit down and brace yourself for what really is not fine. Because,
code word, abandon ship, right? Like, get away from her. She's not fine.
Not a drill. Yeah. And, but we are so worried to actually stop and feel in what's our triggers, what's being bottled up within us, that we would rather just say fine and not feel into it, recognize, explore it, and understand what the range of emotions is brewing within us that is seeking our attention.
Yes. And by keeping it inside, you're building up so much. You're building up your cancers, your tumors, your sicknesses, your diseases, every immunity killing thing you could think of comes along with all of that as well. Yeah. Every last time.
And when you've had a breakthrough and you've shared some stuff, because you could literally have explosive diarrhea because you're finally releasing this shit. Once you start noticing something, like you could verbalize it out or you could release it out. It's the body is very literal.
It's got to come out. It's got to come out. It does. It's just, I've realized there's so much power behind getting what you need to say out of you, whether it be this lifetime and the shit that's bothering you in this time, the people who are there who you feel that you're just allowing yourself to be a doormat to. It's just, you have to find the way to stand up for yourself. I think we have been conditioned in this lifetime to really not stand up for ourselves, to find some kind of camaraderie and other ways of thinking that, it's not, you must find who you are and you must stand up for that person. And if you don't, then, you'll probably get another lifetime where you get to do this. It may not be as fun, it might be a whole different set of conditions, but why not do it now?
We're here now, get it done.
Yeah. It's the most powerful time is now. So,
and when you can truly love yourself and respect yourself and sort of forgive yourself for your overreactions or underreactions or limited perspectives or whatever, that's when we can really step up and empower ourselves. And it almost seems like when we don't really love ourselves, we don't have boundaries, because we're usually trying to seek attention and approval from others so desperately. We will allow ourselves to be doormats for other people's, needs and requirements. And we can only do that for so long until we feel absolutely drained. And then that's when we are forced to change one way or another. And I know for parents, some parents and children life contracts, their parents are very hard to teach those children to have those boundaries, to empower themselves, to love themselves, to speak up for themselves. And those children will say, my childhood was terrible. But when they go into a session and hear about what the service was for those parents, so people training them. We were talking, I was saying, I don't know if I grew up in grass, I would be able to be who I was, because you were sort of sharing with me your life when you were living in New York growing up, and realizing that people were trying to purposely get you, harm you, piss you off, trigger you, but not for your growth, but just to be a jerk, Yep. And I was just starting to get this, not so long ago, realizing that hurt people don't just accidentally hurt people. Hurt people will freaking go out of their way to try and hurt you. And I was oblivious.
Right. It's funny. It's your conditioned behaviors, your nurtured arenas, like what it promotes. It just makes people who are able to handle different things at different times. And, I needed to be exposed to the way that people can be incredibly nasty for no reason growing up. In fact, I think that's like on the flag of New York City's, borough flag is like gonna get you. It's one of those, but there is a reality of people out there who do want to do that kind of stuff. And I think the most important way to battle that out is just, you have to stand up for yourself. You have to find that power within yourself. If you don't, you're just living a second-rate kind of life. You're allowing yourself to be a doormat, and that's not what you're here for. You're not. If we got to see our whole lives and looked over this lifetime and then suddenly got the chance to come back at any given point and redo it, I guarantee you we'd say things a lot differently to people. And we'd treat people very differently. And we would have very different experiences knowing what we know already. And I think that's a big part of it. We need to live our lives like they're over already in so many ways. You need to go look at it as if this is that chance to redo it. You're there. Just, you know, find your affirmation for yourself.
I think my one for a while is in my life review. Am I going to be proud of myself at this moment or not?
It's funny, and when in the book I write about the life review, and that didn't even come into play. You just feel a genuine love for yourself that you've never felt for yourself on this planet, like while you were in this body. You feel so much appreciation and love for what you've gone through that you don't judge yourself like that. And yeah, it may just be for me and my existence. I may have a very different experience than other people who've gotten to that point, but that's what I felt there. In that in-between world.
There is no God waiting to smack your bottom for the naughty things you did. It's just reflecting on all the choices you made. And this is when you realize that there were some moments that there could have been other choices and other experiences your soul does want to experience and explore, because they want to be independent and have these lessons and experiences for their own journey. It's like, I feel like, for me, I say significant and purposeful and perspectives are kind of, key to everything. So I sort of feel like they get overused, but underused because, I would love to express to everyone every aspect of what something is significant about and how it's significant and impact and all that sort of stuff. But I spent the time to go into gritty details of everything. And I know you've had sessions where you've asked certain questions have been asked, and the subconscious was like, well, how long do you have for me to mansplain this to you?
Yeah.
Well, my friend, I just, from the bottom of my heart, to all the people that are going to read your journey again and discover your first book and discover your coming second book, and they will identify their own struggles, their own pain, and from all of that find strength and empowerment and encouragement to continue on, to find love of self, to find joy of self, and to find inner peace with all of those people that triggered us and all the opportunities to experience and explore. I thank you, Jen.
Thank you. You've just bottled that up so nicely into such a concise sentence there. That's what I feel. I feel like that is what we need to do and where we're going and just everything that encompasses it. Thank you.
Yeah, I know so many people were really moved and just blown away with your first book. And I think they were too sort of like fan building, boying, and too shy to sort of reach out and say, this explains so much for me. And it's kind of like, it feels so comforting to be able to recognize in someone's other truth, our own truth. And, all our worries and fears about how people are going to react or not react or behave or process our truth, really none of our business. We know we have to be here to share our journey. And we know the people who need to hear it will. And that's just the magic of how the universe loves and supports us always.
100%. It's interesting. I've received quite a bit of messages from people through all different kinds of email, social media, that they read the book and they tell me how it affected them or what it did for them. And I haven't had two tell me the same thing. It affects everyone so differently that it's kind of amazing. Like, I've kept a collection of all of it. Maybe one day I'll reach back out to a lot of people and see if I could publish it and put it out there. But it's amazing to see other people recollect what you've recollected in your sessions, and to have that oneness, that togetherness. It's kind of beautiful in its own way,
I have experienced when people are telling me back some of the sessions I've done publicly, and they have this epiphany and they remind me of this one aspect, and that's their big thing. And I'm thinking, wow, because this was my big thing. And it's kind of like we listened to the same question, we heard different stuff for different information, different levels, different layers, and it's mind-blowing how one session or even one book can meet everyone's needs emotionally, metaphysically, everything, because really when we're drawn to something, there's always going to be something good for us. Are we paying attention? Are we noticing the significances of it? Are we noticing our intention of the lessons, and how are we unfolding it, and what is sticking in our minds and our feelings and in our hearts? We are exploring, other people's experiences while respecting their journey, and also wondering what fully is mine, what defines me, and what's holding me back from trauma I have no idea is occurring, under the multi-levels of our inner work.
It's so heavily connected. It's like celestial spider web kind of understanding. But yeah, no, Joe,
I just love your language, because I would be like, yeah, it's totally a hot mess. And you've just got such good words, and I love that for you. And I love listening to you. And when I read your book, it was so enriched with all the details. We were right there with you. And I think you know your journey, you know your purpose, you know your mission, you know your skill sets. And again, I just want to honor you for stepping up and healing yourself and empowering all who feel your energy, your love, your inspiration, and your realness.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the recognition, because, each of our journeys is an individual one. And I don't always expect other people to recognize when I've made an accomplishment or I've grown or I've done that. And you do, and you see it and you understand. And I really do appreciate that, because it's not been an easy journey. And I know that it has all been worth it, though, that it will continue to be worth it. And I have to, for anyone out there who's listening and you're on the fence about how you feel about things and you're still understanding, let me tell you this, point blank. Understanding myself and doing the inner work and doing the dirty work and really going through the shit has made my life so much better. It truly has. And I can't say that it's made it picture perfect, because that's not what I wanted, but it made it better and better and better. And every day it continues, because it's allowed me to get the shit that wasn't serving me out of my life. The stuff I was too scared to ever look at, not even the stuff from past lives, just even from this very existence. It's all interconnected. It's all intertwined. And good luck on your journeys for whoever, hears this and relates to it, because just don't stop. Keep going. Keep figuring it out. It's a very long journey, and you decided to be on it too. So do it.
I think it's purposeful, everything that gets what we're going through this lifetime, even though we have no potential idea of what's happened to other lifetimes. It's all there, and we get to experience it in one way or another to heal from it, even though we may not realize this is just ticking off all these boxes of healing our emotional range, because it's all about the emotions and overcoming certain emotions. That's the key of what I perceive as living on earth, is mastering the emotion, mutual love and respect for all.
Yes, completely. And it's the mastering of the emotions. It's not the hiding of them or the disguising or the swallowing of them, or, displacing them with more pleasant feeling thoughts. It's really processing it. It really is. And it's, I watched this documentary not too long ago. It was about this man who wants to surf a 100-foot wave. And he's spending his life going around trying to find this perfect 100-foot wave so he could be the person who, and I've realized, when I watched it, I went, oh shit, this is life. We have to surf the 100-foot wave. You need to look that thing in the eye that you don't want to do, that you need to do, that's going to light your life up. And you need to just do it. And that's it. And that is what I just look at my life now as the 100-foot wave. Instead of the one coming to crush me, I'm surfing it and I'm coming out the other end, and you're going to love it. It's going to be good. Yeah.
Photo finish. Fantastic. Yeah. Face your fears. And kind of the fears do block us. Absolutely. Because, we're afraid, and we don't even try to look for the wave if we're afraid of getting wet. life is full of getting wet.
That's great. I highly recommend it.
Okay, well, I'm going to add all the links to all the descriptions of everywhere that we can find you. And yeah, give yourselves a treat, buy her book, because I know that this is going to be not only profound information for us, but perspectives that we can support others, because we know it doesn't matter what country you're living in, people are having exit points by suicide rapidly. And we need to be able to support those who are left behind, always and forever. And sometimes it can be really hard when people don't want to believe in afterlife and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, we're here to listen to them. We're here to support them. And, you know, with maturity and balance of emotions, we can always be of service.
Very well said.
Okay, my friend, I love you so much. And all the best. I can't wait to watch it. Read it.
Nice. I'm going to send you over one soon, Joe, as soon as I get them hot off the press.
Thank you so much.